Picture this. You're a teenager, minding your own business, and suddenly your entire country gets steamrolled by the Babylonian Empire. So instead of detention or no allowance for a month, you get the deluxe punishment package: kidnapped, renamed, dragged 1,000 miles from home, and enrolled in the king's scholarship program, which is just a fancy way of saying, you live here now and you better be grateful. And the first official test of your loyalty to God in this brand new pagan empire is food. That's it. Just eat the king's gourmet buffet and drink his wine like everybody else. Except Daniel takes one look at that golden tray of roast mystery meat and politely says, no thank you. I would rather eat vegetables and drink water, which is basically the ancient equivalent of turning down an all-expenses-paid trip to Vegas to go eat plain rice alone in your room. The guy in charge of these prisoners almost has a heart attack, because if Daniel and his 3 friends show up looking pale and bony next to everyone else who's been feasting like royalty for a month, he's the one getting punished. But Daniel says, trust me, just give us 10 days. 10 days later, the salad squad looks healthier, sharper, and more glowed up than every single buffet champion in the palace. So the king promotes them immediately, because apparently nothing impresses an emperor more than 4 guys who said no to free food and somehow came out looking better for it. And just like that, Daniel wins round 1 without even trying, somehow turning "I'm on a diet" into a legendary career move, which honestly should be studied in business schools. But round 2 is where things get unnecessarily dramatic, because King Nebuchadnezzar has a nightmare. And instead of just telling his wise men what the dream was so they can interpret it like a normal person, he decides, and I cannot stress how unreasonable this is, that they have to guess the dream first, with 0 clues, and then explain what it means. Which is basically like your boss saying, I had a thought yesterday, tell me exactly what it was, or the whole department is fired. No follow-up questions allowed, no hints, no 20 questions, just guess the unguessable or die, which is genuinely one of the most chaotic management decisions in recorded history. Obviously, every fortune teller, magician, and astrologer in Babylon fails instantly, because that's an impossible request invented by an insecure king who clearly skipped his nap. So Nebuchadnezzar, in true unhinged monarch fashion, orders the execution of every wise man in the kingdom, Daniel included, even though nobody had even asked Daniel yet. So Daniel does the smartest thing possible. He calmly asks for 1 night, prays about it, and God shows him the entire dream in full detail. A giant statue made of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay, representing different kingdoms that will rise and eventually crumble into dust. Daniel walks in the next morning and not only describes the king's exact dream like he was standing right there inside it, but explains the meaning too. Nebuchadnezzar is so shook, so utterly speechless, that for a solid moment he forgets he's supposed to be the most powerful man on earth and just bows down to a guy who got dragged here in chains a few years ago, then basically promotes Daniel to the 2nd most powerful man in the entire empire, which is an incredible glow-up for a guy who started this story by getting kidnapped and forced to rebrand against his will. But the king's ego apparently did not learn its lesson, because later he builds a massive gold statue of himself, because nothing says humility quite like a 90-foot-tall trophy of your own face, and orders literally everyone in the empire to bow down to it whenever the music plays, or get thrown into a furnace so hot it could melt an entire city block. Daniel's 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the original ride-or-die squad, simply refuse, because bowing to a giant golden ego statue is a hard pass for them. So jealous co-workers immediately snitch on them, because apparently nothing fuels office politics like watching someone skip mandatory worship hour. The king, furious, cranks the furnace up even hotter, like he's personally trying to win an argument with the laws of physics, and has the 3 of them tied up and thrown straight into the flames. Except instead of turning into ancient barbecue, they calmly walk around inside the fire completely unharmed. Not even their clothes smell like smoke. There's a mysterious 4th figure walking right beside them that even the king notices and gets visibly spooked by, like he just crashed a private party he definitely was not invited to. And when they step out, not a hair singed, not even a whiff of smoke on their robes, the king has officially had it with losing arguments to Daniel's God and issues a royal decree respecting him on the spot. But apparently, royal memory in Babylon has a very short shelf life, because years later, King Belshazzar throws an enormous party, the kind with way too much wine and zero adult supervision, and decides it would be a brilliant idea to drink out of sacred temple cups that were stolen from Jerusalem, which is the historical equivalent of using a priceless museum artifact as your personal beer pong cup. And mid-party, while everyone's having the time of their lives, a ghostly hand appears out of absolutely nowhere and starts writing strange words directly onto the wall. No warning, no explanation, no dramatic intro music, just floating, disembodied fingers scribbling cryptic graffiti, while the entire party freezes in terrified silence, like someone hit pause on the whole kingdom. And this, by the way, is literally where the phrase, "the writing is on the wall," comes from. The king turns the color of milk, calls in every wise man available, and nobody can read it. Pure ancient panic everywhere, until someone finally remembers there's a guy named Daniel who's pretty good at this kind of thing. So they drag him in, he reads the message instantly, and basically tells the king, "Congratulations, your kingdom is officially over, tonight." And shockingly, that very night, the kingdom falls exactly like Daniel said it would, because apparently insulting the rules of the universe at your own party is not a great long-term survival strategy. Somehow, after all of that chaos, Daniel is still standing, still respected, still doing his thing decades later under yet another king, Darius, who likes him so much he wants to promote him again, which understandably makes a bunch of other officials wildly jealous. So they cook up an evil plan, knowing Daniel prays to God multiple times a day no matter what. They trick the king into signing a law that says anyone caught praying to anyone other than the king himself for 30 days gets thrown straight into a den of lions. And the king, not realizing he just signed Daniel's potential death warrant, finds out too late that this law is basically unbreakable, even by royal decree. So when Daniel, completely unfazed, almost suspiciously calm honestly, keeps praying at his usual open window like nothing happened, like he didn't even read the new law, the officials catch him instantly and report it with way too much excitement in their voices, practically high-fiving each other in the hallway. The king, who actually really likes Daniel, tries everything humanly possible to save him, but legally cannot undo his own law. So with a heavy heart, he has Daniel thrown into the lion pit and says, and honestly this line hits different, "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." Then he seals the den with a giant stone and goes home to not sleep at all, pacing, panicking, regretting every decision that led to this exact moment. At the crack of dawn, he sprints back to the den and shouts in, practically begging, asking if Daniel is somehow still alive. And from inside the pit, completely calm, completely unharmed, Daniel answers that he is totally fine. The lions never even touched him, because God sent an angel to shut their mouths the entire night. The king is overjoyed, pulls Daniel out without a single scratch on him, and then, in a twist that feels almost too poetically perfect, throws the scheming officials into that exact same lion pit, where the lions, apparently saving up all their appetite for this moment, finish the job in seconds. And the moral of this entire wild ride? You can get kidnapped, renamed, dieted on purpose, thrown into furnaces, locked overnight with hungry lions, and survive the mood swings of multiple unstable kings for literal decades, as long as you stay loyal to what you actually believe in. Because somehow, every single time, against every possible odd stacked against him, the guy who simply refuses to back down ends up the one still standing, while entire empires rise, panic, and crumble around him like sandcastles at high tide. And honestly, if that's not the most underrated glow-up story in ancient history, nothing is.